would you react if you discovered that between 4 and 10 million children are exploited through human trafficking? And what would you do if you discovered you could be a part of the solution? I'm an award-winning jewelry designer with work in private collections and museum exhibitions around the world, and a lifelong college educator. My proudest moment was being invited to join a team of Hindu metalsmiths to create a silver Hindu chariot, a traveling temple, and the only woman to be so honored. So what's a jeweler know about trafficking's dark landscape? It began with my vacation to Cambodia while teaching college in Malaysia. There I met two sisters, 10 and 11. We became friends. They were sweet and innocent, and we shared stories when I took them to lunch in the marketplace. I wondered where their mom was and why they weren't in school. They told me they were in the sex trade. And their trafficker was their mother. I quietly studied the girls' faces. One had a cleft palate. I knew her disfigurement made her less desirable than her sister. I knew her disfigurement made her the lucky one. It's unspeakable to have these thoughts about a child being desirable. Their story made me furious, but I caught myself. I've never starved. I couldn't help the girls because they were living with their mom. What hope do you really have when poverty and a lack of education traps you? What becomes of all the unseen children? Their story haunted me, but inspired me to reimagine the futures of other trafficked children. Teaching sustainable design sparked the connection. Human capital is a sustainable commodity. Trafficked children are seen as disposable commodities, and the way to help became clear as a course project. My students were galvanized with this project because it helped children who couldn't help themselves, especially those slipped through porous borders without documentation and may never get home. My students realized these trafficked kids could have been their sisters. We began by researching countries on the human trafficking watch list and learned that slavery today surpasses the entire history of slavery. Let me repeat that. Slavery today surpasses the entire history of slavery. We also researched non-government organizations providing shelter and support to rescued children. So many shelters are underfunded and understaffed. They are only able to support children on average for 27 days. Given that, how many survivors are going to enjoy successful futures? Too many children then fall into the other dark reality, that of re-trafficking, sometimes being bought and sold, or because the sex trade is the only skill they have to survive on their own. Once you've looked, it's hard not to see that child trafficking and re-trafficking is a huge industry with annual profits up to $150 billion. That's comparable to Amazon's annual revenue. This industry uses children as disposable and ever-replaceable commodities, and too often flourishes with the tacit endorsement of the military and the police, who use the services of the children as their bribe. So what's worse? An industry supporting child exploitation, or our global indifference to their suffering? It demeans each one of us. We can roughly estimate the numbers of rescued survivors, but it is the tip of the iceberg. Without alternative skills, survivors are uniquely vulnerable to re-trafficking. My students and I realized re-trafficking is a global problem. So we created a global solution I call the 3 V's: vacations, volunteerism, and vocational training. By combining a few days of your vacation and volunteering to teach a vocational skill, you create enormous potential for long-term success, and not just for survivors. This benefits society and touches the heart of every volunteer teacher. The best part of this, you don't even have to be a teacher. Every one of you has an opportunity to make a huge difference simply by volunteering your time and teaching what you know. Arts and crafts like sewing and drawing and cooking are ideal vocational skills because they offer immediate pathways to economic and personal freedom. But all skills are valuable for children who have little, if any, education. For 5 years on our term breaks, we partnered with non-government organizations sheltering survivors. We taught jewelry making to help survivors rise to their potential. We provided the workshops at no cost to the shelter and donated all the materials needed for the survivors to begin their small businesses. It is important to teach lessons that will match the environments that many survivors will work in, such as tourist destinations and local markets. That means creating without the things we all take for granted, like electricity. We only teach lessons that keep it simple, keep it real. And right away, survivors were making beautiful jewelry of their own designs. I saw the girls emerging from flatlined expressions into radiant smiles as they realized my male and female students never judged them. In fact, we adored them for their strength and resilience. This is where hope thrives. Tangible stepping stones the survivors themselves began to envision. The 3 V's, vacations, volunteerism, and vocational training, only need your compassion and intention to gift a few days of your time and knowledge. Your life will be forever changed when witnessing hope, overcoming despair, and experiencing the impact of your gift. Together, we can make real change happen. Many of the young women we worked with were rescued from brutal oppression, locked in rooms, tied to beds for years as sex slaves. One survivor threw herself out of a 6-story window to save her own life when she heard the trafficker's key in the lock. Because of the 3 V's, even traumatized survivors knew remarkable success. Repatriated to home countries with paid positions, or funding their own businesses and educations. One survivor wrote to me and told me she'd gotten her law degree. Every time I've worked with survivors, I imagine releasing butterflies. Radiantly beautiful, strong yet fragile. These delicate creatures can reimagine themselves and fly 1,000 miles. But if you disturb the dust on their wings, they may not fly. Let's all help survivors rise above their trauma and embrace a brighter future. The successes of the young women we worked with shouldn't be the exception. It should be the rule. And when you reimagine your vacation, you too can release butterflies.